there was this little girl who came up to me and she looked at me. She goes, I want to know something. Are you a friend of Jesus?
Before we get started with today's episode, we want to let you know that this episode touches on some behind-the-scenes aspects of being Santa that may not be suitable for young ears. If you have little ones around, we recommend listening later or with headphones. Thanks for understanding. Let's dive in. This is Pod Strangely Warmed, a place where we tell the good Methodist story, where we have conversations that invite followers of Jesus to seek after that loving, just, and free world that God imagines for us all, and have a little fun along the way. Hey, Pod Strangely Warm family. Daniel Hawkins back here in the studio this week as we make our way toward Christmas and celebrate the incredible joy and peace and hope that come to us each and every Christmas. Today on the podcast, we're not talking about AI like we did last week. We're talking about the joy of this season with a couple of folks that I am super excited about. Today, we are joined by Santa George Campbell. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It is a joy. Santa George is a part of my local church, an amazing human, and also a Santa who's worked with, well, he'll tell you about that a little bit later. And we've got Dustin here on the podcast today. Dustin is so excited to be in this chair. What you can't see is that off camera, all the stuff that is normally kind of way back there is sitting at the edge of the table. But Dustin, you are here as our resident bad Santa hat wearer and holiday aficionado.
I do love all the holidays.
All of them.
So excited to be here.
Now, are you feeling a little nervous sitting this close to Santa Claus?
So nervous.
Okay.
I got to stay on the nice list, so I need to.
You do.
That's
behave.
true. That's true.
You got to behave.
You know what? You are on the nice list.
Oh, okay.
I can tell you that right now, Dustin. You're good. Okay.
Tell my mom.
All right. Yep. Yeah. But we do have to do something about that hat.
Right.
I love this hat.
Yes.
It's a mighty fine hat. It needs some hair products to kind of control the...
I'm open to any advice I can get.
We may improve it over the. I may actually pull the brush out and start fixing it for you. Yes, one of the hazards of being a Santa is, as I was telling Dustin, is to brush your white fur. And there's a lot of white fur I have to brush. I must spend 40 minutes a day brushing white fur to make it look perfect, because it has to always look perfect.
Got to be on point.
Yep, got to be on point. Yeah.
George, as we get started today, Dustin's here because he's a voice of curiosity. We're mainly here to talk to you, just so you know. You've been Santa for how long now?
It's over a decade. I just say that because, you can be Santa for your whole life. I mean, actually, technically, you're Santa for your family in a way. And Dustin, you're Santa for your family.
Sure.
So, we've all been Santa for a while, but I can say over a decade, I've really been doing it what we'll call professionally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me the origin story. How did this begin? Where did it start?
It's a funny story. And it starts in a really weird way. I had a flat tire.
Okay.
It was started with a flat tire. And, it was a nail in the tire. And I went up to where you buy your tires, Costco, because, they have they take your tires out. Well, I went into the Costco and I said, and Mike, the guy I knew there, he says, oh, hey, how you doing? Fine, good. They started working on it. I said, I'll go into the Costco and sit down where they have the books. They have the furniture and the books next to each other, so you can read a book while you're waiting for your tire to get fixed, right? And it got to be time. I went back out there. Well, I'm sitting there waiting for my car to come out, and a mother and a little girl, she was 4 years old, came barreling in there. She had a full shopping cart, because people shop while they're getting their tires put on or whatever. And the little girl's eyes got very big, and she ran over to the shopping cart where there were a lot of things. She grabbed a package of cookies, ripped them open, and ran over and handed me 2 cookies. Now, my beard was not as long or as nice as it is now. Maybe it was about as long as Dustin's, really, but it was white. That was the thing, yeah. And the joke is, I raised 2 teenagers, and that's what made my beard white.
Fair enough.
Mine's
on its way.
It's on its way. That's right. You have one, yeah. She ran over, she handed these to me, and she said, "Here, Santa, these are for you." I was wearing a black shirt, black hat, black sunglasses. I didn't think I looked like Santa, but she decided I was Santa.
Incognito Santa, she found you out.
And so I just said, you shouldn't just hand cookies to strangers, my friends. You shouldn't do that. And the mother came over and said, "You handled her so beautifully. You must be the real Santa." Catherine knows a real Santa when she sees one. And so I drive home with my repaired tire. I roll into the garage, and I said, the funniest thing happened to me at Costco to my wife, Denise, who at the time was the Shady Brook Elementary School secretary. And her head went like this, and she goes, you need to think about that, because the Santa we have isn't going to be able to do it anymore that we have at the school. So you need to become the Santa for Shady Brook.
Very good.
And tomorrow night I'll be for the 11th or 12th year, the Santa at Shady Brook. So
very cool. So it all begins with that one moment.
That one moment when a child, I think, this is my decision, that's the way I put it, is a child chooses you to be Santa. And when a child does, then you become Santa. And that becomes a whole journey in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last decade plus of being Santa Claus, right? Today, we were just talking before we got on the air about how many gigs you've got over the course of kind of this 6-week intensive period. Right. And, it was 3 yesterday, it's 4 today, it's 125 over the course of the holiday season.
Of the holiday season, yep.
How do you move from Costco, with a kid choosing you, to the elementary school where your spouse works and you're a natural shoe-in, right?
Well,
to embodying this character in such a complete and full way that your entire, I know, like your wife is a Santa widow during this season at church. We see Denise all the time, but we don't ever see George because of all of the things that are going on in the ways you've been connected. You worked with Dude Perfect. You've worked with
Collins Street Bakery, the fruitcake folks. I've done several videos with them. I'm actually in the movie Fruitcake Fraud, which is a movie that they actually produced about it's a long story, and it probably is not for this time, but it's an interesting movie. You go look it up on Netflix, and it's there.
Nice.
So it's a very interesting life, and it started out, when I started, I rented it and I put that suit on, and that night I said, this is amazing. I can't believe it. When those little kids come up to you and the look that they have in their eyes, that's when you say, oh my goodness. Yeah. And there's something happens, in a way, strangely warmed. Yeah, that's what happens.
Okay.
And then you find out, and then you start to go, well, I've got to find out more about Santa. And of course, we've got the internet now. So I started looking things up. I had people recommend me, you need to go talk to these people, you need to go to this. And by the way, there's a Santa University where you can go and so I went and drove to the Santa University and went there and learned just a little bit. It's basically a week course, if you will, and you learn as much as you possibly can about being Santa, and you learn about St. Nicholas and his connection with Christ. And all of a sudden, Santa is now completely connected with Christ, just like that. And for you in your mind, and for me in my mind. And all of a sudden, I had a whole new team. Okay. I say I've got, the boys upstairs were all patting me on the back saying, yeah, you should be doing this. You should be doing this. Yeah. And I think that's when it started to become less of a kind of a business thing and more of a ministry. Yeah. Well, you make a little money at it. Yeah, fine. That's it. But it's the reward of knowing you're serving people and how you serve people that is expanded in so many ways. Yeah. And I think that's the real wonderful part of it. As you go on from the university, you meet other people that are doing it, and there's lots of people that have been Santas and have gone on. I've lost a few of my mentor Santas this year, sadly, because it is something that a young guy can do, and there are many young Santas that do it. Dustin?
I've looked into it. I've thought about it. Maybe one day.
Yep, we can get you going there.
Just dye your beard and we'll be good.
Yep, it's not a fun process though. I'll tell you that. If you can get it white quick, that's the good thing. Daniel's working on his, and that's good. So yes, but yeah, that's one of the things that you can do. And but you meet there are higher orders of groups of Santas that Brothers of St. Nicholas, of which I have become associated with them. Then, of course, there's a group called the International Brotherhood of Real Bearded Santas, and a local group called Lone Star Santas. And so, and I've served that particular organization for a number of years as well. I'm just a member now, but for 7 years, I was a board member of that. So, and you learn a lot about different folks, and we actually have our own rituals. When a Santa passes, there's something called the Last Sleigh Ride worship service that happens. And I can tell you, it's very hard everybody's allergies act up during that portion of a memorial service very much, because it is really something very special. But we also have a Santa Claus oath that everyone takes to, remind you. And some of those things ring in my head every time I sit down out at Clear Fork, or even at a photo shoot or at a party with kids. Some kid will come up to me and have a story for me and need to tell me something.
Yeah.
And I keep a little book, and I write their name in that book, and that book gets prayed over, because that's what we have to do to kind of do that. And the sad part is, this year I've added about 4 or 5 names this year. Normally I add 2 or 3. There's a really sad thing that will happen, but this year it seems there's a lot more.
Things are weighing heavy.
Pain for a lot of people, and and my job is to bring joy, and but when you say I'm missing my cousin because he passed away, and that could come from a 4-year-old or it could come from a 40-year-old, and it's the same child, and we have to talk to them in a special way and to help them understand. So you do hear stories that are hard to hear, and that's part of being St. Nicholas or Santa Claus or whatever his name is in whatever part of the world you're in.
Right. Well, and I think I love your spirit and the way you bring to this. And that's part of the reason why we wanted to have you on the podcast, is that this is, you get to be a part of the wonder and the imagination and the joy. But, I hadn't thought about it ahead of time, but also the comfort of this season for so many folks. Was there something that, as you moved from Costco unintentional Santa to Shady Brook Elementary to all that is now, that kind of caught you by surprise, that you didn't expect coming in, about being invited into this moment of joy and inspiration and wonder for so many across North Texas?
I think there have been a couple of times that I've actually had to be involved in some, visits, if you will, that were kind of harder. And when I do those, I say, why? And they say, why. And it's always the voice in my head. And I kind of equate it to the Holy Spirit. Yeah. Friends were asking me Saturday, how do you do this? And I said, well, it must be, I just let the Holy Spirit take over, and it just works for me that way, And there isn't really I couldn't say there was actually a precise moment that it happened, but it has just kind of been a steady thing. I always get a reminder. It's almost just a tap on the shoulder every day. Hey, remember, that's what you're supposed to be here for. Yeah. And that really started pretty much right after Shady Brook, when I was starting my business and starting to let my people know that I was a professional Santa. I got a lot of calls, and one of the first calls was from a member of our church that knew some folks down at one of the autism places, and I said, "Wow, that's great! I'm gonna learn everything I can about special needs children and how I can handle those." Yeah. And I went to Morgan's Wonderland, which is down in San Antonio. It's a wonderful amusement park, believe it or not, but it's for challenged
people with special needs
and challenged people. Yep. And I went there, and they have a special course for Santas. Okay. So you can learn how to be basically a Santa that can handle, because you have to handle a lot of things.
How do your best intentions meet the outcome that the kid needs?
You get a lot. Again, there's a lot of times in my mind I go, "Whoa," to myself. My inner voice will say, "Whoa, this is interesting," or "Wow, this is an amazing thing that's happened." And in the early on, I said, "I've got to learn how to handle these things." And it is. And every time someone with a special need comes in the line at the shops at Clear Fork, where I work now, or anywhere else, oh my goodness. I'll immediately stop the presses. You guys all wait in line. I'm going to take care of this person. And I kind of almost have that instinct to do that. Yeah. And I think the parents appreciate that, and the families that come with the child appreciate that as well.
As you think about this season and the intentionality and the care that you bring to each one of these interactions, and frankly, the sheer number of interactions, one, do you have any notion as to how many kids you see over the course of a season?
I kind of put the number somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000. Okay. That's all total. Wow. between the different things I do, because last Thursday night I was on top of a fire engine with with 5,000 people in Bridgeport, Texas, waving away. And by the way, you have to go to the gym to get up on the top of a fire engine, because if you've ever climbed onto a fire engine, it's not easy. Let me tell you.
They need to have boot camp for Santas too.
Yes. Well, yeah, and that's why I train at the YMCA. And maybe if you saw on Thanksgiving morning, I was the
You were
person
there?
who started the gobble trot.
Okay.
They gave me the air horn. That was really fun. It was really cool.
You should see his bag that he carried in. It's a hefty, hefty big old bag.
Well, that's just to carry one thing.
That's the one.
Yeah, yeah. There's another bag in the car.
There's another bag. That's right. That's it.
And just for the record, the car is red, and it's always red.
Right, and the license plate does say, "My other ride is a sleigh."
Nice. Okay.
That's right. Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
As somebody who's embodying this much intentionality, having this many engagements and interactions with the community, I know you're an outgoing, kind of extroverted person generally, but is there ever a moment during this season where you're just exhausted and ready for a nap?
And it was about 10:45 last night when I got back from Weatherford. Yeah, I was a little okay. I said, okay, is this a fork? I don't know what I'm eating with, but it was one of those things, and and it is a kind of an interesting a thing that you go through. You get a little tired, but this morning and every morning, it's just kind of like during this time of year. I can have other times of year I'm not feeling this way, but whenever I know I've got something to do that day and I've got special things to do for people, I think the good Lord just gives me energy and spirit to do that. And, he goes, okay, here's your dose for the day, go. Yeah. And I do. And, and it's funny because I get up, I'll sleep in like the best. Everybody likes to sleep in. My eyes will wake up. I'm at 5 o'clock. I'm ready to go every single morning that I'm going to be Santa. It's one of those funny things.
So, Holy Spirit.
Yep.
Right.
Holy Spirit.
Well, there is power when we find ourselves living in purpose,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
And sometimes we talk about purpose like it's a lifelong thing, like we have this singular purpose for our entire lifetime. But part of what I love about this is sometimes our purpose for a season comes to us. It chooses us rather than us always choosing it. And it can shape and form this season.
Yep.
Because you weren't always Santa Claus, right?
No, I wasn't.
You started semi-retired.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about what life was like before Santa Claus.
Oh, before Santa. Well, I worked in a lot of marketing and advertising agencies all across in several countries, actually, in the United States and Canada, and I worked with a number of different really well-known people that are, and it's interesting. The advertising business has changed drastically over the years in marketing. Some of the agencies I work for don't exist anymore. Just you think, 100 years you'd be going, but the dynamics of social media and everything have changed everything around. But I worked for some very big clients, American Airlines and Pace Pecani sauce, and lots of different commercials you probably have seen from way back when. Terminex, we did a bunch of work for Terminex, and just it was a long client list, and we were a very big agency, and I was one of the senior executives there. So I knew a lot, and I've also worked in public relations and direct marketing and lots of different ways, and I've always enjoyed it, and it's kind of carried forward. It's probably how I'm able to write books now, and writing, and I was always in the creative side. I was a creative director, so I loved drawing when I was a kid. I still draw, as you know,
every day.
Every day I try to. Well, this is getting tough this time of year, but It was that fun one I did of the police dog last week in Bridgeport. I met him on Monday night when we were doing the Christmas tree lighting. Yes, and it's kind of fun. But so I learned a lot, and so television production, commercial production, those sorts of things were all part of my bag of skills. So it kind of helps with Santa,
For sure.
When I walk in and you're doing a commercial with or the guys that do it perfect. I say, wow, I've never seen somebody GoPro cameras in one place at one time. That kind of thing. The way they set up the room. So they're very creative in what they do, and I kind of lean towards creative people. So it's one of those things that I have a lot of fun with.
Well, in many ways, your professional life has been creative. I know your interaction with church is a place where that creativity spawns forth, right?
Yes, right.
And your life as Santa is an extension of that, right?
Yeah, and you got to remember, it's not just a season; it's a year. Because you do it all year long. I mean, I was, we lit the afterburners at the FC Dallas football game. Santa came up there and did that, punched the button and all those things. I was afraid I was going to singe my beard. It was so hot, but it was a fun night, and we had a really good time with it. And it was Christmas in July. So, we do it all the time.
Well, and there's a way, and I've watched you, you're in a way, you're always on as Santa Claus, right? Because you can't grow that kind of a beard in the 6 weeks before Christmas every year,
That's
right?
right.
It's an ongoing part of your identity. And in some ways, like you often take pictures for us at Vacation Bible School, right?
Yeah.
It's an expression of that creativity, and to watch your interactions with the kids in that informal space, right?
Yeah.
Some kids who've been around the church know you, right? And,
Yep.
in some ways are kind of desensitized to the Santa effect.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
but those kids of ours that are guests or from our neighborhood or community, that kind of awe and wonder in the middle of June or July here at church, here's Santa, right?
We had a lot of fun with the Project Transformation kids this summer. Yeah, because they were all, whoa, Santa's here. And, there were a couple that weren't behaving quite nice. And, and of course, the counselors for Project Transformation, come here, Santa George.
We got a great behavior
Santa
modification.
Yeah, right. You gotta mention your nice list to this one, okay? And I do. That's what we do. There's so many fun things. Yeah.
Well, but I think about that idea of always being on, right? And you've named a couple of points in this conversation, the connection between this expression of your creativity and your own faith journey.
Yeah.
I think as followers of Jesus at our best, we live in that identifiable kind of way, right? Where we get to be always on as ambassadors of Christ.
It is.
How do you do that while facing the struggle of sometimes, even Santa Claus is going to have a bad day, right? Even Santa Claus is going to have a day where you woke up and everything hurt, or, or it's not the build up to Christmas and 12 p.m. met 5 or midnight met 5 a.m. and nobody functions on 5 hours of sleep.
Right.
How do you engage with that, knowing that everywhere you go in the public, little people, in a way, are kind of counting on you?
Well, you're always on. That's the button, and that's what. And if you want to say, in your faith journey, one of the stories that I have to tell, it happened this year. I mean, and there's always, because there's so many years now and so many stories, it's kind of like they build up, and it's just that memory's almost full now. But there was this little girl who came up to me, and she looked at me, and this is a kind of a way of looking at it. And I was actually not having a particularly wonderful day that day, and she came up to me, and she goes, "Santa," and immediately, yes. What can? Hello, She goes, "I want to know something. Are you a friend of Jesus?" And it was kind of a day when I was kind of one of those low spells, and all of a sudden, and it wasn't even what I said shocked even myself. I said, "Jesus is my best friend." Did you know that? Do you remember in the Bible where Jesus said, "Let the children come to me"? Well, that's Santa's job. Santa's job is to take care of children and to make sure you're okay and to have some fun and to remind you of the joy of the season, which doesn't just happen during the Christmas season, but happens all year long. And her eyes got really big. And she ran back. And of course, there's always an assessment.
Sure.
Hey, Mommy, he's the real Santa.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was one of those, validation. But, and I often think, Jesus is in a rocking chair on my back of my head, and he's just sitting there laughing when that stuff happens. But it's one of those things. Yeah.
As someone who's been active in our Methodist churches for a while, I know you've been at Martin for an extended time. We're at Martin, and then corporate life took you to a couple of different stops, and you came back.
Yeah.
Are there additional ways and places where kind of the faith formation in our Methodist expression of Christianity meet your everyday as you try to be Santa Claus?
I think it's a direct analogy. I mean, it is everything that, and I've been a lifelong Methodist. I think I was 2 weeks old when I was baptized in a Methodist church. I think I still have the certificate, yes, somewhere. But I've always embodied. Wesley, I've read his books. I mean, I think he would have made a great Santa Claus. I know I'm going off there, but it's true. His principles, if you read the way he thought, in the way of the Methodist originally as he envisioned it, well, a lot of be kind, be generous. Well, it all fits together, and be creative too. I mean, he had that little underlying thing which ties in with it as well. So when I look at John, and I've always been a fan of him and what he did, I and as the founder, I think that's probably the thing that has kind of driven me to say, almost every Methodist principle Santa can pick up and use. Yes.
Including the rubbing puppies on your stomach.
Rubbing puppies on your stomach, I don't know about that.
I think that's
reindeer, maybe.
Reindeer are wonderful animals, but we won't go into that because that would be another half hour. Yes, okay, we could go and have fun.
I bet.
Yes, because Dustin knows I learned more about reindeer than I wanted.
He knows
to
so
know.
much.
It's really scary, but it's.
Well, you got to
but
be
you
ready
have
for the
to-
quiz,
right?
Whenever,
Exactly.
Because there's going to be that kid who has done their Google deep dive and
Yep.
know all the things. And
Yep.
they want to make sure you're legit. And,
What the other day? Santa? How old are you? 1,754 years. And the little girl goes, "Mommy, he's right. That's what it said on Google." So,
Oh wow.
this is what happens.
hey, it is good.
It's my
good.
life.
It is,
and I love it.
One of the things that I think we've talked over the years that connects your life and faith. You mentioned the shops at Clear Fork a couple of times.
right,
It's one of your primary gigs during
Yes,
this
it
season.
is, yes.
And it's not just a place where people can come and get a picture with you in Santa or you as Santa, but there's also some good that's happening there.
Absolutely.
And as
There's
a good
lot
United
of it.
Methodist, you love this connection of transforming the world around us. Right?
Exactly.
Tell us a little bit about that connection and how your work is engaged in that.
Well, actually, it started because they were building Clear Fork, and it was going to be more of a upscale, very fancy shopping center. I mean, they hadn't quite finished it yet, and they did a little deal, and they hired me as Santa on a whim, and it was like they found me through one of my little Santa things that I had posted, and they brought me in, and I did the gig, and that was funny because that was probably, let's say, divine guidance pushing things in certain directions, because the next thing I know, they said, "We want you to come back next year and be our Santa Claus at Clear Fork." And the first years we did were we always wanted to be a charity. And it wasn't like you go in and they have the pictures and you have to pay a lot of money for pictures. You bring your phone in and you take pictures with your phone or your camera. You can bring your good camera, whatever you want to do. And then what we do is you make a small donation. So there's not a lot of money involved in it. And what I've watched over the years, I've been doing it. This is my 7th year there. And the donations, by the way. Oh, do I have? Oh, there it is. Yeah, the donations go to a catalog called the Greatest Gift Catalog Ever, and you can actually make gifts through this catalog, and it's a whole bunch of North Texas and Fort Worth charities.
Yeah.
So the money is going. And last year we raised, I think, over $70,000.
Wow,
That's
very
just
good.
little money at a time.
Yeah.
Now, you can get a pass and pay a little bit more, not to have to wait in line. We do have a little pass you can scan to get in there. But these are wonderful charities that feed children. They educate children. As a matter of fact, there's an interesting story about one called Academy 4, which is now at Martin,
Yep.
and it has been supported by the Greatest Gift Catalog for many years, and it's a really wonderful operation. So not only do I get to engage with thousands of children, but I also get to raise funds for charities that need help. So we're feeding children. We're even feeding pets. Wildlife 101, Don't Forget to Feed Me,
Right.
provides
Yeah.
provides food for people that don't have money to buy food for their pets. So there's wonderful
Because food
small
insecurity
charities.
moments don't just impact the humans, right?
Exactly.
They hit everybody.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah.
We love
So-
pets on the podcast too.
Yes,
We
right.
do. We
so
do.
we all love pets. So especially one little pet we know over here. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So so it's a wonderful.
Pop
it's a
Tart is
wonderful thing.
asking for a Pop Tart this year.
Okay.
Like the
I don't know if that would be healthy for.
well,
Pop-Tart
not
to
like
eat.
not an actual Pop Tart, but
a doggy.
a doggy Pop Tart.
Doggy
right.
Pop-Tart.
I think a doggy bed that's a giant Pop Tart would be a
Okay.
cool gift.
That'd be cool.
We actually, at Lowe's of all places, found a dog toy in the shape of a Pop Tart that is officially a toaster pastry. But so the dog's actually getting a Pop Tart for Christmas. So hey,
Perfect.
there you go.
Perfect for the name. Okay.
That's it.
Excellent.
So we've got about 5 minutes or so left.
Okay.
I want to start with a first level critique of Dustin's hat here, so that we can kind of help it find ways to get better.
Feels
There it
like
is.
I just
Okay.
oh
Okay.
And here
All
we
right.
go.
Here we go.
All
Here
right,
we go.
we're
We
gonna
got,
start doing
got a
this.
quaffing going
look
on.
See already. Look how much nicer that looks
That's it.
on this side. You see? This is what I do all the time.
Now you gotta turn the camera,
And listen,
Dustin.
It even has
There you
something
go.
else
I
on the
can't,
back of the brush. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Well, no. I'll do the side of the camera.
Is
so
this
you
the
can
same one you
see it.
use on your beard? Do you have a separate for
No,
beard?
this is the suit brush.
Suit
this
brush.
is a very special brush. Yeah. But look at how much nicer this is looking already,
yeah.
Dustin.
Oh, yeah.
You see that? You got
So now it looks better than your beard does, man. I
Oh,
mean, come
okay.
on.
No, I can't do that. No. Okay, so there we go. A styling. Now, I bet that's a first for Strangely Warm.
It is. It is
Santa's hat
a
styling.
first for
Yeah.
Pod Strangely
Yeah,
Warm.
Santa-
We've done a lot of things, but not a restyling of a Santa hat.
There we go.
Dustin, you've been sitting here. You are a resident kind of Christmas and Halloween holiday aficionado. You were sitting here with Santa Claus, right? You have the opportunity to ask Santa any question in the world. What you got
I have so
for
many
us today?
behind the scenes questions.
perfect.
As Santa George, what's your favorite lore of Santa and like the multiple? If there's multiple, or like you mentioned earlier, you named off a few different names. So what's your favorite lore of who Santa is in the grand scheme of things?
St. Nicholas of Myra is the Santa Claus.
Okay.
And St. Nicholas has an amazing story that probably would take another 30 minutes, but it's an amazing story about, and many people know it, because he was born of Christian parents, and he lived in Myra, which is now in Turkey, but it was at that time Greece, okay? And his parents passed away, but they were very wealthy. I always kind of like to think that they were part of that clothing business with Priscilla and those guys with the purple cloth.
Yeah.
Anyway, they did a bunch of those sorts of things, and they were very well-to-do family. And they passed away, and all their money, all their wealth was bestowed upon Nicholas. Nicholas was raised by his uncle, who was a priest in the church at Patera. So what he did was he took care of Nicholas, and Nicholas had a passion for helping people from a very early age. Legend has it he fasted on Wednesday and Friday, just so he would be able to, share wealth with people. And he started out by hearing stories of need, and he would go out at night, and he didn't wear red, he wore black. He was like a ninja. That's what we tell the kids.
Ninja Santa.
He went out there, and he left firewood and food on the doorstep. Interesting how we get into service and Methodist values all of a sudden, don't we?
sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, but one night he heard about these 3 young daughters of this man who was very ill and not well. And he said, I've got to take care of them. So legend has it, there's lots of legends. He went to their home, and he had a bag of coins. And the first night, he threw the coins. For the first daughter, he threw the coins in, and they landed in the stocking, drying by the fireplace.
Okay.
And that's how that started. The second night, he sent for the second daughter. The third night, the third daughter got his, and they were taken care of. Well, the man did recover, and that third night he was recovering, he did catch Nicholas. Yes, as he was leaving in his black whatever he was wearing, so that nobody could see him. And he said, make me a promise, do not tell anybody what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that was a really wonderful kind of thing. Of course, the guy didn't really keep his promise. He told everybody what Nicholas did. But Nicholas became the patron saint of young children, of young women, and there are different legends about what he did that tie into it. St. Nicholas actually prayed one night when he was on a ship in the Mediterranean Sea and calmed the waters. And the sailors, and that's why he's the patron saint of sailors. So, and they came and got him and put him in Bari, Italy now. That's where his remains are. They removed them from where they were in Greece because they were afraid they'd be stolen. So, or Turkey at that point in time. So his remains are there. Yes, and we visited Bari. It's a beautiful place. Yes.
Wow.
Very good. Dustin, you get one more.
So one more. Who's your favorite representation of Santa in movies?
Oh, I knew that was coming. I love, my favorite is The Miracle on 34th Street. Edmund Gwynn was actually, by the way, my height.
Okay.
Yes, and a lot of people don't know this. Edmund Gwynn had a beard very much like mine. Yes, and he is my favorite overall Santa. Which means I'm younger than my teeth or older than my tongue or whatever that line was. Yeah.
Very good. I got one more for you. I've got in my list of random questions, I've got one like Dustin. So I need you to solve a controversy for me.
Okay.
Die Hard.
Die Hard.
No.
Is it a Christmas movie or not?
Oh, I would definitely say it's not.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
An
because
action movie set at Christmas time.
Action movie set at Christmas time is exactly what it is. Now, that new one that's out, Red One, I think that one's also an action movie with really weird storyline. But
is
the
different.
one thing they did get right is me working out in the gym. That's absolutely right.
Okay.
I do work out in the gym.
There you
That's
go.
for sure. Yep. So, but
You're going to give The Rock a run for his money.
yeah, well, The Rock actually would probably be Bernard in that movie. They kind of
Okay.
recast
yeah,
everything.
Bernard.
Yeah.
I asked some people coming out of the cinema because there's a cinema at Clear Fork, and I
Yeah.
said, "Well, we saw Red One. What did you think of it?" And one of the moms said, "It was strangely disturbing."
You mentioned Bernard. Tim Allen's Santa Claus is my favorite representation of
Right.
it. A little bit sarcastic, a little edgy, and that's kind of where I am. But
That's where, yes.
The suit I wear was made by the same people who made his suits.
oh wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So
Dustin, you asked about the lores of Saint Nicholas, right? Santa Claus is known by many different names around
Right.
the world, and this is something that not only has captured your imagination, but you want to share with
Yeah.
the public,
That's
while
right.
also continuing to do a lot of the good that you do through the work at Clear Fork. Can you
Exactly.
tell us a little bit about your book?
The book, yeah. We did this book a while back. And actually, I made it for many of my brothers in red, my brothers that are Santas as well, because we're always looking for something fun to do with a home visit. And so this becomes a game book because when you open it up, it asks you the question of what do you think? So it's basically around the world with Santa, discovering his many names. So as you go around the world, it shows you, so you say, what's the name of Santa Claus in Switzerland? And also, by the way, for the fifth graders, we have the flag of Switzerland and a map that shows you where Switzerland is. So
There you go.
learn a little bit more, not only about Santa, but about the geography of the world and everything else.
Denise would be proud.
Yes, that's right. And then we come in here and it's St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas is the most commonly used. So you guess the name. Now, what do you think it is for the Netherlands?
I have no idea.
No idea? Oh, well, it is Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas, which is almost what they used in Miracle on 34th Street, because here's the line between Sinterklaas. The Netherlands, the Dutch, were great explorers. And because of that, they went out and they traveled around the world and they discovered new lands. And one of the lands they discovered, they built a city and they called it New Amsterdam. And then the English came in and took it over and called it New York. And they brought Sinterklaas to New York, to New Amsterdam, which then became New York, and Sinterklaas became Santa Claus. And that's why he's in the Macy's parade.
Oh,
There you go. Very good. One of the things that I personally love is that the proceeds from this book go to support Food for Learning, with is a local DFW piece that supports food insecure kids in HEB-ISD right now.
That is correct.
And hopefully in time is able to expand beyond that. But in Hurst, Euless, and Bedford, we make sure food insecure kids get fed through that. And so if folks were looking for that and wanting to play that game with their kids or their grandkids, where could they find the book?
There are links around. And they can easily just email me if they want. Yeah, Santa at NorthTexasSanta.com. If you do that, Santa at NorthTexasSanta.com, and I'll send you the link to the book, and you can. And they're basically custom printed one at a time, so it works out pretty good. And and all the money goes to Food for Learning, which we love that charity, and it's a wonderful thing to do. And because kids really do need to eat on the weekends. That's really important. I was telling a friend of ours at one of the parties this week, and he said, I want to help with this. So we're going to see if we can get this expanding in a couple of different directions in a couple of different towns around North Texas. It's going to be really great.
Awesome. Very, very good. Very good. George, thank you so much for your time. I am super excited. You'll be back on the podcast next week. We're doing a Santa or a Christmas Essentials draft.
Well, I won't be back.
Well, you won't be back.
Santa will be back.
Santa will be here officially and fully on the podcast. We're doing a Christmas Essentials draft with some more friends. And as always, those drafts are a whole lot of fun. And so, again, thank you so much for your time. We're going to get that link to Dustin. He's going to put it in the show notes so that people can click through if they want to find it that way.
I can give you the link directly to the book, too. We'll do that, too. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect.
That sounds good. Thank you, George.
All right.
And thank you for being with us this day on Pod Strangely Warm. Until next time, I'm Daniel Hawkins. This has been Pod Strangely Warm. If you enjoyed our conversation today, know that you can find us anywhere you find podcasts. On Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, any and all the places, we are there. So if you want to continue the good United Methodist conversation that you've been a part of today, find us, like us, rate us, review us, and share with a friend so that the good news that is happening right here in our own midst can amplify even more. You didn't say anything for the first 25 minutes. So I'm like, Dustin, I'm making you ask a question.
I didn't want to interrupt him. He was talking, and I was.
But that styling worked well. I mean, yeah, look at how improved that is. Yes. And there's something called Folex you can get if you get a stain.
Folex.
Folex, yeah. You'll have to learn about Folex.
When Santa's talking, I just don't want to interrupt him. That's
Okay,
why
that's fair. That's fair.
But I was glad you were here.
What did you say at the beginning? The embodiment of joy, like that's
right.
joy and awe. I'm just like.